Between hexes and this spell level being unlocked, you are going to be a real force to be reckoned with on the battlefield. Hello everyone, and welcome back down here to the Gamer's Den with me, your host, Jordan, your master of lore and storyteller extraordinaire. Joining me today, obviously, is my most adorable co-host, Finn, apprentice storyteller, uninitiated as yet to any circles of lore. Nonetheless, he's still here today learning and flexing his high charisma stat. But today we are going to be going over the 6th level spells for your 1st edition Pathfinder Shaman. With this particular build, with any build of Shaman, when you hit your 6th level spells, you get just such an incredible array of options, a panoply of spellcasting goodness that you can bring to bear in a wide variety of situations. But before we get into all of that, if you're new here to the channel, go on down there, hit the subscribe button, and become a regular member here at the Gamer's Den. Or if you've already gone on ahead and listed yourself on just such an incredible roster of legendary heroes, then go on down to hit the like button and share the video far and wide. But now, let's actually start getting into the heart of the issue here today. And to kick things off for your 6th level spell selection, we have Banishment. Banish up to 2 hit dice per level in extraplanar creatures to their home plane, no two of which can be more than 30 feet apart. You can gain a +1 bonus to overcome spell resistance and increase the will save DC by 2 for presenting items or substances that the creatures hate or despise or just generally are anathema to them. Now, this is great because by the time you get this level 11, level 12, you are going to be dealing with more and more extraplanar creatures, more than likely. Or at least they're going to come up often enough that this is still going to be useful to have handy. And getting to be able to spend 1 spell slot just to send them back to where they came from and minimize the damage they do, and the number of rounds you spend hopefully hitting them and dealing damage to them, this just negates a lot of that. And the fact that you can do so much to boost the effectiveness overall, because that's not just a one-time gain, that is +1 to overcoming spell resistance and an increase to the DC by 2 for each item that you present. And depending on what your DM's ruling is, if you find something that's especially antithetical to the extraplanar creature you're dealing with, then that can become a +4 bonus. Like, really, working with your DM, you could come up with some incredible things. And 2 hit dice at level 11, that's 22 hit dice worth of creatures. So you can get rid of some pretty high level things. Even if it's just 2 11 hit dice creatures, that's still a great thing to not have to deal with and have on your plate. So absolutely a great spell. But then we have Wall of Stone, which is just great for utility. At a range of 100 feet plus 10 feet every level of Shaman that you have, you can make a wall of stone 1 inch thick for every 4 caster levels you possess, in 1 5-foot square per level, so 11 5-foot squares, with a hardness of 8 and 15 hit points per inch of thickness. And the thing is that this just doesn't have to be a wall. You can use this to bridge gaps and chasms, though especially long stretches will need support beams, buttresses, things that you can form out of the stone in order to properly support the weight of the stone and any creatures crossing. So all the way around, this has just great utility. You can use this to set up quick fortifications with crenellations, matriculations, all of those wonderful defensive things that you might need for any given fight. So absolutely a wonderful spell to have, not just for combat, but for utility outside of it as well. Then we have Greater Dispel Magic. Target 1 spellcaster, creature, object, or 20-foot radius area. If you select the targeted option, dispel 1 spell for every 4 caster levels, starting with the highest level that you're able to affect. If you're choosing to target an area, roll 1 dispel check and apply that to each creature in the area, excluding magic items. And then for Counterspell, it works as the Dispel Magic version, but with a +4 bonus on top of it. Otherwise, this spell works like Dispel Magic. So refer to that one if you need more details on how exactly this levels out its effects. But no spellcaster should have this. Even if your wizard friend, cleric, or druid, or witch have this, you take it too, because this is going to be great to have. Now, we move on from there to Flesh to Stone. Target one creature within 100 feet plus 10 feet of level. They must make a fortitude save or turn to stone. And spell resistance does apply, but there's ways of getting around that and overcoming it. And when you do, you're going to want to make sure you pick out a good target for this, because a lot of creatures do have good fortitude saves, like the burly creatures, the ones that are the muscle, the melee fighters and the like. So if you're dealing with an NPC with levels of fighter, paladin, barbarian, they're probably going to have good fortitude saves and have better chances of overcoming this. You know who doesn't, though? Spellcasters. Spellcasters, especially full spellcasting classes, tend to not always have the best fortitude saves. There are some exceptions, but a wizard or sorcerer is a good pick for this spell, especially if you overcome their spell resistance. Then that fortitude save, they've got lower odds of making that. Removing them from the fight is huge. So, definitely a great spell, but one where you have to pick your targets. But when you pick the right target, my goodness, is this terrifying. Then we have one that's a little bit more helpful in Raise Dead. After 1 minute of casting and consuming a 5,000 gold piece diamond in the casting of this spell, you touch dead target creature to restore them to life. Raised creatures take 2 negative levels, or 2 levels of constitution damage if the target is level 1. With hit points equal to their current hit dice, the body must be raised whole, otherwise missing body parts remain missing. So if they're missing a limb, missing an eye, an ear, if you don't have that at least with them, kind of touching on the target, then it's just gonna be gone, and the body's just going to be like that the rest of the way. And then you still got to deal with the 2 negative levels that you have to remove. But if a player has a choice between being dead or taking 2 negative levels, take the 2 negative levels. Then after that, there's still just so many spells that are of a good quality that you really want to consider. Things like Cone of Cold, and while it is a blasting spell, and blasting's not always the most effective option, again, this is a damage type that does not have as common a resistance or outright immunity as fire does. It's a pretty decent sized area of effect with the range of the cone, and so you can deal a significant amount of damage with this pretty reliably, more reliably than you could with Fireball, as an example. You also have spells like Planar Ally or Wither Limb to, well, wither the limbs of the target. If you're able to hit their legs with it, then their movement speed gets reduced. If you hit their arms, that arm becomes useless, and whatever they're holding has to be dropped. Or if it's a two-handed weapon, they have to switch it over to being a single hand. So just target the dominant limb and really punish them. And then lastly, there's also Awaken Construct, which it's kind of iffy, but I really, really like it, because you touch a non-intelligent construct after, I believe it was 24 hours of casting this spell, and then you can give them 3d6 intelligence and give them a charisma score as you awaken their intelligence. Now, it doesn't mean that they're going to be an ally to you. That's all going to be presumably randomly determined by the DM. Alignment, their attitude, their outlook, whether or not they're going to consider you a friend. Are they confused? Are they active? Are they looking for revenge? The array of possibilities is just limited only by a DM's imagination and what you're going for and what you've prepared overall. But what I imagine this being used for is if, say, you're dealing with a target that you know has unintelligent constructs. It has stone golems, mithril golems, adamantine golems, whatever the case may be. That golem that has a cannon for an arm. And if you awaken intelligence in those, you throw a severe monkey wrench into plans, because if they're making those constructs, they're depending on them for defense, protection, maybe even some offense down the line, and they represent a significant investment of resources. So if you awaken intelligence and suddenly this thing just isn't friendly with its creator anymore, that's a big plus for you. Even if it's not friendly towards you and decides it's just going to up and leave, that's a big reduction in an opponent's fighting capabilities right there, especially if you target one of the more expensive golems, like an adamantine golem, though, you know, good luck figuring out how to get close to that and throw this spell onto it. But, you know, that's just for player, that's a situation where player creativity and the exact situation at hand is going to come into play. So, you know, the possibilities, again, are just endless, essentially. So you got a lot of interesting options, some really cool spells and abilities, even if they're not going to be effective. Hey, buddy. Even if they're not going to be effective in every single situation you come across, there's still going to be moments where these have use. Like, again, Awaken Construct. That's pretty limited by the specificity of what it needs to target, and the fact that you're not going to be finding constructs on your every single day-to-day adventuring. But when you do, and you find an opportunity to make use of this, it could be absolutely spectacular. But what do you think? Go on down to the comments below and let me know your thoughts. Did you like today's video? Did you dislike it? Let me know your thoughts in the comments down below, and we'll engage in discussion. And what spells might you recommend here? Like, do you want to espouse the virtues of any of these other spells that I didn't go into detail for? Is there something else on the list that you think is actually pretty good? Let me know your thoughts, and don't forget, if you're new here to the channel, go on down there, hit the subscribe button, and become a regular member here at the Gamers Den. But with all that said, I've been your host, Jordan, your Master of Lore and Storyteller Extraordinaire. This has been Finnegan, apprentice storyteller and uninitiated as yet to any circles of lore. Thank you all so very much for your time, and you all have yourselves a good night.